Hey, everybody, and welcome to a special edition Storyteller walkthrough here on Stream On Gaming. I am your host, Chris the Werewolf Killer, and today we're not actually playing a game. I'm just doing a simple walkthrough to get you through the steps of learning how to become a storyteller, or at least the basics of it. There's a lot of different stuff you can go through, but this is a simple one here with Trouble Brewing, and let's take a look. Alright, first thing you gotta do is go to clocktower.online and you see this little sprocket up here in the upper right. You click on that. A drop down menu is gonna come down for you. You're gonna move over to the the antenna. It's a tower. I call it an A. You call it what you want. It's a tower, radio tower. And you would simply go to host storyteller. You could also just hit H, like it says right here. I am going to use SOG for Stream On Gaming. As you can see, I've already added some people, but I'm going to show you how to do that. So you simply want to type in A, hit A again. If you don't want to do it that way, you can go to the 3 players in the middle and you can go to add, which is the same thing. So you add, and I'm going to just say Chris, boom. And you got yourself a bunch of people you're going to eventually add you. If you want to add another one, you simply type in A or click add again, and you continue on until you got a full grim like we have here. Now, we're going to figure out what roles we want to give to people. So we're going to go to choose and assign or hit C. You can just hit C on the keyboard. And as you can see here, you can assign 10 characters randomly, or you can shuffle the characters. If you shuffle the characters, it's going to switch between a bunch of all the characters. Always making sure that you've hit the correct number of characters. You need 7 townsfolk with a 12-player game. This is all for 12-player games. You need 7 townsfolk, 2 outsiders, 2 minions, and a demon. You can always switch them. Obviously, the game will allow you to make this error, although it will question you in a moment if I let it try to do something wrong. But always make sure that on the left-hand side your numbers are all correct. Now, let's say I want a poisoner. Let's get rid of the spy. And let's say I want the drunk. You can click on any of these. If you click on the drunk, you will notice that it gives you an exclamation point. That means that you have to adjust accordingly. There's something wrong with your numbers. If you go down to the bottom right, they got an exclamation here. There are characters selected that need to modify the setup. You got the drunk here. You're going to have 7 up here. And when you assign your 12 characters down here at the bottom, boom, everybody's going to have a role, including the drunk, which you now must adjust. So Joseph's a drunk. We're going to change him to the monk. As long as that's not in play, it is in play. We're going to try somebody else. Undertaker. And we're going to make the Undertaker get this little symbol here, the drunk. That means he's actually an outsider. That way we kind of remember that he is one of our 2 outsiders that the game starts with. Now you have it all set up to start a game, but your demon's going to need 3 roles that aren't in play. So we're going to come down here and we're going to click on we're going to add some demon bluffs. Let's give them a top 4 role. We'll go through that in a little bit. We'll give him the chef. We'll give him the mayor. And we'll give him, let's give him the fortune teller. All right. Now our setup is basically ready, and we're ready to start. But if you want to add some more to it, there's always these fables. You can always add some fables in. Each one has a different ability that it does. Hell's Librarian is if you got people in your group that like to overtalk others, you simply put in the Hell's Librarian, and if they keep doing that, they're going to get punished, possibly by you if you so desire. Let's get the Hell's Librarian in here. Let's add another fable. Let's do the Sentinel. That's a popular one when there's 0 outsiders. That's one where you add an extra outsider, or you can take one away. Or you could do neither. You can just put it in there to make them question if there's an extra outsider or one less. It's up to you. Choices are always yours, and yours alone. So make it a good one. Alright, so now we have got everything set up. and we're ready to go. So we'd send everybody to what we would like to call breakout rooms, and we would start a game. Now, how this game works is something that we'll go through next. So let's begin with that. The game will work with having all of these characters. Let's go through how the game works. So you got all these characters, and during the first night, you're going to go and visit some of them. If you have any questions about who you're visiting, you can hit the letter N, and you can go through which characters you need to visit and which order. First night is on the left, every other night is on the right. So the first night you're going to go and talk to your minions, which in this case are Ross and Lucas. You would go to them, you would tell them that they are the poisoner or the Scarlet Woman, depending on which one you're talking to. Always go one at a time, obviously. And you would also tell them who their demon is, Steven. So you would go and you would say to Lucas, you and Ross are the minions. Steven is your demon. Good luck. In the case of Ross, who is a poisoner, he would get to choose somebody that night. So now that I've told you you're the other minion and your demon, who would you like to poison? And he would pick randomly. Next, you would go to your demon and tell him, Steven, you are the imp. Lucas and Ross are your minions. You never tell them their roles. They have to figure it out for themselves and talk to each other if they want to figure out their roles. So, Lucas and Ross are your minions. Your demon bluffs are Chef, Mayor, and Fortune Teller. And then they say, good, thank you. And you say, good luck. And you would proceed down the list in order. You go the washerwoman, then the librarian in this case, and anybody else that might get visited. In this situation, nobody else is getting visited, which is not good for the home team, but they could still pull it off. You never know. Alright, that's the end of night 1. Some people like to call it night 0. I seem to get confused, so I'm going to stop calling it night 0. I'm going to call it night 1 when I'm storytelling for my own peace of mind. It is still a night, and we need to start at 1, in my opinion. The other way is fine too. I'm not dissing anybody's way of doing it. So, we proceed. After we talk to everybody wakes up and they begin to talk. You'll be watching and listening, trying to figure things out. You may want to learn what your demon's bluffing as or the other minions, just so if somebody's poisoned, you can give them false information that may lead to them looking less suspicious. Typically, if somebody is poisoned and they are given, and you give them info, you want to give them info that helps the bad team. Unless the bad team's doing extremely well, then maybe you still want to give them the right information to keep the game moving, where they might have a chance of winning the game. The game proceeds, and then you go to the nomination phase after everybody's done chittering, which is up to you. You let them know, hey, breakout rooms, private talks are closed. Let's go have a word, nominate some people. Let's see what happens. Nomination phase. That's where we're going to decide who is going to get executed. Everybody still talks a little bit. Matt might say, I nominate Joseph. So you would click on Matt's name. Oops, sorry. You click on Matt's name, hit nominations, and then you would click on the finger that's on Joseph. Now Joseph, or Matthew, or Matt, gives an accusation for Joseph. I think Joseph's suspicious. He's claiming a role that sometimes can be claimed also by a spy, and I just didn't trust him in our 3 for 3s. I think he's lying. Then Joseph would proceed to say, I'm not lying. I'm a good role. You might want to keep me around for a bit. Who knows if what he's going to say. People come up with whatever they want. They can say their role if they want. They can say a different role if they want. It doesn't matter. So, After he makes his accusation, Joseph makes his defense. You can, although you aren't required, to ask if there's any pertinent information. If there's not, you head straight to the countdown. At this point, everybody would vote. There is a voting thing in the middle here, but I can't really show that to you. As a storyteller, I don't get to vote, obviously. But if somebody does vote, they put up a hand. It'll look like this. If there are 6 hands, which is a majority, boop, 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 boom. Oh, 7. People really didn't trust him. You would mark Joseph for execution and then close down the votes. It will show this little skull, and people will continue on talking, possibly nominating. Joseph might even go, I nominate Stephen. I talked to him. I didn't trust what he had to say. He was a better kill than me based on what information I have. Please don't kill me. Stephen would say, he's clearly lying. Don't let me die. I'm very important. Maybe he's pretending to be the chef or the mayor. And then the countdown would begin. Pertinent information allowed again, and we would go through the shenanigans. Boop, boop, and so on and so forth. He's not going to get any votes because we don't want to kill the demon the first day. So we'd go to Joseph after much discussion, and we'd say the day is over. Joseph has died, and the game continues on because he was not the demon. Everyone will go to the breakout rooms, and then the night phase will begin again. We will go this time as night 2. We will go to everybody again. Poisoner first. This time we got more people that weren't visited the first night. And we will go to the monk, the Scarlet Woman, blah, 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 right down the list. We got Imp. Only go to the Raven's Keeper if they happen to die by the Imp at night. And we will go down the list. Now, day 2 would start, and we will say that the Imp killed the washerwoman. And Lynn is not going to have a double roll. Oh, yes, she really is, if I keep doing that. There we go, boom. Washerwoman's like, yay, I died at night. It's no big deal. I'm a washerwoman. And we would continue on. Daily, somebody would die. Nightly, somebody would die. Sometimes during the day, they might pick an actual evil person. Until eventually, we get down to 3 people left. And then it's down to the town to decide. Are we going to kill the imp, who we don't know is the imp, but we might accuse him? Or are we going to kill somebody else that we didn't trust as much, and it turns out we lost the game? The last day they kill, we'll say, Joy, the Raven's Keeper, and you will say, the game has ended, and the good team has lost. Sorry, guys. Stephen the Imp beat you this time. But what if the imp was killed? Well, then we would do the same thing. We'd say, the game is over, and good has won. That's right. We have the winning good team. Stephen was your imp. And then you would go through what all happened, and you would talk about the day, or the game. And the game would end. Now let me tell you about some of these roles in Trouble Brewing that you might give you a little bit of a hard time to understand. So a lot of them are basic, knowledgeable roles. Washerwoman will start out knowing 1 of 2 players is a particular townsfolk. Librarian, same thing, outsiders. Investigator learns a minion. And the chef knows how many pairs of evil. In this particular case, there would be no pairs of evil, so chef would learn a 0. With the washerwoman, you're kind of given free reign on if you want to show them a soldier or a Raven's Keeper. You can kind of just be like, Lynn or Lucas is the empath. If you're poisoned, then you could say Ross or Lucas is the fortune teller and give them a bluff roll. Make them look a little less suspicious. Totally allowed to do that if they're poisoned the first night by the poisoner. So each roll has a different uh, way of gaining knowledge throughout the game. Some people don't gain knowledge and they work with everybody else, like the Slayer, for instance. They get to pick somebody to kill, and if it's a demon, they die. So they have no information throughout the game. They can only try and learn what they can from others. And if the Slayer chooses Steven, and he says, I choose Steven to shoot with my Slayer shot. And if he chooses Steven, the imp dies. But if there's 5 or more left, when he dies, it jumps to a Scarlet Woman. And then you know that if Steven was killed by that one of two things happened. That Steven was either the imp and there's a Scarlet Woman in play, or Steven was a recluse and you didn't kill the imp. Now let me tell you more about the recluse since we're talking about that. That's an outsider. Outsiders are good people playing for the good team, but they have roles that don't exactly help the good team, and you're never sure if they're really good or if they're evil playing as not so good. So the recluse is you may register as evil and as a minion or demon even if dead. So the recluse can register as any minion, as evil, or as the demon. So if recluse died during the day by execution, and the Undertaker, who each night learns which character died by execution today, if the recluse dies, you might learn that the recluse was a spy, or the recluse was the imp. Now you can't show the recluse as the empath because that's a townsfolk, but you can show him as any evil player. Also, for a fortune teller or empath, it's the same thing. The recluse, for an empath who learns if their neighbors are evil, if he's sitting next to a recluse and a ravenskeeper, and the empath gets a 1, that's because it's a recluse or an evil player. Now, if you got a fortune teller who checks the recluse up against someone else, say the investigator, and gets a yes, well, the fortune teller here has special properties. Each night they choose 2 players. You learn if they're the demon. Investigator, recluse. Yes or no. There's one good player that registers to you as a demon. Now that's not the recluse. That's typically a townsfolk, although you could give them an outsider. But typically, you could say that the Slayer is the red herring. Let's go over here. Do we have a... Let's say Jay was the fortune teller. And we wanted to get... At the beginning of the game, we'd start out and we would put on a red herring. This indicates that at any time that Jay picks Keith and somebody else in his fortune teller, he would get a yes. Doesn't matter if it's Steve and the imp, or if it's, let's say you're the recluse. Or if it's Chris the recluse. He's going to get a yes with Steven. He's going to get a yes with Chris. He's going to get a yes with Undertaker or anybody else. That's the red herring for the fortune teller. So anytime the fortune teller checks Chris, Steven, or Keith, he's going to get a yes. Now, early on, the Scarlet Woman would test no. But if Steven the imp was killed, and it jumped to the Scarlet Woman Lucas now will ping as a yes. So keep that in mind. Many of these interactions you have to remember and kind of keep in your mind as you storytell. So pay attention. We all make mistakes. Don't ever let a mistake deter you to think that you're not a good storyteller. You are human, and we all have made some mistakes, some worse than others. If you've watched any of my videos, especially my Storyteller ones, early on I was putting in the fibbing way more than I needed to, and the fibbing isn't even a fable that you're supposed to use for that. But since I fibbed, I used it. But back to this. So again, now we're going to talk about the Raven's Keeper. If they die at night by the demon, no, if you just die at night, sorry, not by the demon, you choose a player and you learn their character. So the Raven Keeper dies, you choose Matt. You learn Matt is a monk, unless you're either poisoned or were drunk the entire game. Either anything else that would change what you might learn aside, if you are killed and you are who you say you are with no interruptions, you learn that Matt is the monk or Keith is the librarian. It all depends on who you pick. Except for, again, the recluse, who always could register as something else. So that's a tricky one. If you pick the recluse, you could learn anything about them. So it's a dangerous thing to do. The virgin. Let's talk about that. That's a good one. The first time you are nominated, if the nominated player is a townsfolk, they are executed immediately. Let's say Joy nominates Jason. Jason. Oh! Immediately, I would just close that out and say, Joy has died, and we all go to bed. Because as soon as there's an execution for the day is over. So Joy has died because he was the virgin, and she was executed immediately. The game continues on, but they go to bed. So that ends the day immediately. No more executions, no more nominations, it's done. One other person that can foul that up is the spy. Let's talk about the spy since we're on the virgin. Each night you see the grimoire, you might register as good and as a townsfolk or outsider, even if dead. So now Lucas nominates Jason as the spy. He could die. You don't have to choose to kill Lucas the spy, but you can. He is able to register as a townsfolk, which makes Jason's virgin here acceptable. Because if the nominator is a townsfolk and you register as a townsfolk, you can die via that power. So keep that in mind. You don't have to, but you can. Let's move on to the mayor. If there's only 3 people left alive and the mayor is still there, and they choose not to execute anybody, there we go. If Jay says, "Hey, I'm the mayor. We could win if we all go to bed right now and nobody dies." Well, if everybody agrees and believes them, then great. Let's go to bed. So they all choose to go to bed, and as through the final night, go to bed to the final night, you would close out the day and just say, "And the game has ended. The good team has won. Mayor victory." And the mayor has done what he needed to do to win the game. If only 3 people are alive and no executions, your team wins. Now another thing about the mayor is if you die at night, another player might die instead. So if Steven at any time picked, let's say it was 4 left, Steven picked Mayor Jay to die. If I chose to, as the storyteller, I could bounce that over to Chris the Recluse. I could bounce it over to Keith the Librarian as well. It doesn't matter. It just any other player might die. So if it's, let's say it's these 4 left, he wanted to kill off Jay the Mayor, and all that was left was evil, I would probably just bounce that over to the poisoner. If the poisoner hadn't already poisoned Jay the Mayor that night. If Jay the Mayor is poisoned, his ability to protect himself from dying at night wouldn't come into effect. So Frost poisons Jay, and then Steven picks Jay. Jay would still die, and the game would be over at 3 people still left alive because they're all evil. So that's one way evil can win a game, with going into the final day, as we call it, with 3 people alive. If they're all evil, they just win. No nominations needed. Let's see if there's anything else I haven't gone through. The soldier is safe from the demon. If the demon tries to kill the soldier at night, nothing happens. There's no deaths. Soldier's just safe. And butler, each night he's going to choose a player. Say Lynn was the butler. Chooses Jason. Lynn can only vote when Jason votes. So if Jason doesn't put his hand up and do that red hand, Lynn can't put up her hand either. That's a tricky one to do too if something gets fouled up. If Lynn chooses to vote and Jason doesn't vote, then you as a storyteller have to decide how you want to handle an incident like that. You can go, you're really at your own free reign. Some suggestions, this one's probably the least suggested one, is to simply not count the vote. However, if you don't count the vote and you say only 6 votes, or 5 votes and you need 6 to kill him, and you're like, well, 6 hands were up, it kind of outs that person as being the butler and confirms them, which is not how the game is supposed to be played. That's one of those ways. Another way is to simply yell at them later, which is probably the best way to do it. And if they continuously do that, you may not want to allow them to be butler, but or again, or you might want to deal with that is if they do that, you may want to put in a Hell's Librarian, and if they try to do it again or accidentally do it again throughout the night or something for that night, you can just kill them off, and people can look at it and be like, look, somebody was talking over somebody. Or maybe they killed him off because he was the butler and he screwed up. I don't know. But the Hell's Librarian's in play. Anything could happen, and something bad might happen at any time. It's really a tricky role to hold on to. Typically, people know how to pay attention to how their person is voting. Uh, Hopefully, as a butler, especially if they're a new butler, they don't pick the person right before them in the voting, because they might, sometimes when somebody's got their hand up, they could take their hand right back down right before they vote. And if you're not right on it as the butler and you're right after that, you might miss it. So, truth be told, it's just a tricky role to be if you're not paying 100% attention during voting. The Saint, if they die by execution, the good team loses. Plain and simple. If you're the Saint, you do not let people kill you during the day. If somebody nominates you, you do your best to not be killed. Even if you don't want to say your role, that's completely okay and your prerogative. But you really don't want to be like, you can kill me. It's no big loss. It is a big loss. The whole game is over. So, as we started off earlier in the game, if you're the drunk, you do not know you're the drunk. You think you're townsfolk, like the Undertaker. Thought he was a townsfolk. When people died by execution, if Ross died by execution, he would learn probably a bluff roll, mayor, or you could give him any other role. You could tell him the monk if you wanted to. It's completely in your viewpoint and scope to say one of the bluff rolls, one of the other in play rolls. You have options. You can just tell them anything you want. Typically, you don't want to tell them the real roll. You don't want to say that was the poisoner. If they're drunk, the reason they're the drunk is supposed to be getting bad info. And that's all of the good player roles I pretty much went through, I believe. So we're going to look at the minions here, as we've already done briefly. Ross the Poisoner is giving people basically a type of drunkenness at night. He takes their drink and he puts some special stuff in it and it makes them see bad results. Ross the Poisoner poisons the Virgin. Jay nominates the Virgin. Jay wouldn't die because the Virgin is poisoned. So if the Virgin's poisoned, Mayor is no longer going to die by that execution. Because the Virgin's role is no longer in effect. They are just basically a townsfolk, a plain townsfolk that doesn't have a role. They just don't know it. Ross poisons the empath. She may have been getting a 0 for a couple days, but now she might get a 1, even with Jason and Andrew if they were still alive. I might give her 1. Now that would kind of tip her off that she got poisoned, so I might give her a 0 still. But let's say she was poisoned the same night Jason died. So now she was going to get info on Keith and Andrew. Well, if she was poisoned, I'd give her a 1, make Keith look suspicious. Make it look like Keith is evil. Let's see what happens there. See if that helps out the good evil team. The spy, they get to see everything that happens. So anytime you put out, they'll know the red herring. They know who the drunk is. They'll know that this person was executed. I mean, they kind of know that. They know pretty much everything that's happened in the game and who everybody is. Scarlet Woman doesn't really do a whole lot in the game, however, is pivotal. You know what I'm saying. To an imp who may not be a strong evil player. Oh, Steven was dead. Let's kill him. Oh, the game's still continuing? That's weird. Well, that's because there was 5 people left. And since he was evil, and the demon, it jumped right to his minion, the Scarlet Woman, who saved him. And keeps the game going. And hopefully, if there wasn't much sus on Lucas, he can continue on and win the game for his team. Now the Baron has no real role except for the knowledge that 2 more outsiders are in play. So let's say Ross was, the Baron instead. That's something you have to do from here in the very beginning. If you're putting in a Baron, you gotta take out one other role, and then you have to add 2 outsiders. But notice how you're 4 and 2. That means you have to take out 2 townsfolk. So we'll take out the monk, we'll take out the virgin. That way the numbers still balance and you have 12. 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 2 is 11, plus 1 is 12. So now we got the 12 that we're supposed to be at, and we assign them randomly. Or give them to whoever you want, it doesn't matter. And again, if there's a drunk, you simply give them a different role, and you mark them as drunk. The drunk might even be the red herring. You're totally allowed to do that. Let's see. And then finally the imp. Each night, except for the first night, if you notice, some of these have each night and they have a star. If the star is there, they don't pick the first night. If the star is not there, like the poisoner, they will pick the first night. They will learn their information the first night. Empath, very beginning of the game, after the evil team gets there to go, you go to the empath, you give them a number for their neighbors. Fortune teller gets to pick 2 people that first night too. You're immediately, before anybody's gets a chance to talk, you're picking 2 people and you're learning if they're the demon or not. And that is how you get a game going as a storyteller and as Trouble Brewing. I hope this helped. Hope this is a nice little video for you. And I hope that if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I will get to as many of them as possible. Each Each of the 3 base games are different. I'm not going to go through each one, but there's Trouble Brewing, Bad Moon Rising, and Sex and Violets. You can go through all of them. We've played many of them on this channel, and I hope you enjoyed it. I am Chris the Werewolf Killer, and thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time on Stream On Gaming. Thanks, everybody.